Peter chapter 5 and verse 7 says that we cast all our cares and anxiety upon him because he cares for us. Mm-hmm. Truly, there's a lot of stress all around us. There's so much that people are going through. Mm-hmm. But God gives us hope when he says that we cast all our cares upon him because he cares for us. Mm. What are the different stages of stress, and how do I know that I am at that point where I need medical help?
Initially, when somebody gets stress, and I think we didn't define stress very well, but looking at, let me take this opportunity to actually define stress. That stress is the way a person behaves to a stressor in the environment. Mm-hmm. And stressors would be the life events that happen in your environment. So how you react to that particular stressor is what is called stress. Now, initially, when you get a stressor in the environment that you are facing, it's called the appraisal stage of stress. So you look at the stressor, and you are able to identify it as a potential threat to yourself or a challenge, and that's the initial step of stress. Now, after identifying it, you then move on to the next stage of stress, which is called the stage of psychological arousal. And in this particular stage of psychological arousal, you will find what is called, the body begins to produce, adrenaline and other hormones, such as cortisol. And these begin to prepare the body to deal with the stress. And you have what is called a fight or flight response. And just to give you an example, if, say, you have a person who has been called to give a speech before a very large crowd in something they've never been done before.
Stage fright.
Yes, that is a cause of stress. So when they enter from the back and they come into the room and they find this whole multitude of people staring at them, their body begins to prepare either for fight or for flight, you know. Mm-hmm. From there on, the next stage of stress is a stage of physical and mental symptoms, you know. And you'll find that these particular hormones that are produced in the body, adrenaline and cortisol, begin to stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, mm-hmm. and that leads to certain symptoms that now manifest. And you may find people have abdominal symptoms. You've heard what is called butterflies in the stomach. Yeah. Yes, that's a symptom. Mm-hmm. You feel as if there's something not, right with the stomach, and you actually want to chicken out of, run away from your crowd of people whom you want to address. The heart begins to beat rapidly. The heart begins to beat rapidly, and somebody is able to tell that that they have a problem before them. There is perspiration. People begin to sweat. When you have stress, you begin to sweat, and you may see somebody even beginning to tremble. And if you're holding a microphone like I'm holding in mine right now, you find that if you look at your palms, they are completely wet. Because of as a physical response to the stressor. People begin to breathe rapidly. If you have stress, there's a stressful situation before you, somebody may begin to breathe rapidly, and you've seen it when you scare somebody, yes. That's a stressor. You scare them, and then they get startled, and the next thing they're breathing very, very, very rapidly. They have muscular tension. And you find people who are stressed will have muscular tension. They have tension headaches sometimes. And that's, one of the manifestations of stress. And it could even end up in them having headaches as a presentation of stress. And in some people, they may even lose their appetite. If the stress is continual, say, for instance, you have lost a loved one and you've been mourning and mourning and mourning, you tend to lose appetite, So those are the ways in which stress, the stages in which stress presents itself. You have, the cognitive stage where you actually assess the stress. Then you move into the stage where you are able to look at the stress and determine what to do with it, either fight or flight. And finally, you get into the stage of physical and mental symptoms.
Okay. Over the last couple of years, we've seen people having to face a lot of death and dealing with loss of family members, close friends. What would you say is a healthy mourning period? Because you've talked about prolonged mourning, prolonged weeping. Mm-hmm. What would be a healthy mourning period for someone to get over that particular situation without getting into depression?
It would vary from individual to individual. Certainly there are people who are able to deal with their death within a very short time, mourn within a very short time, and move on with life. But there are others who are not able to deal with the issues of death very well. And so they will mourn for a long time, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And you can agree with me that if you're mourning for 6 months, that dealing with that particular issue is taking off your time from other things. And so therefore, a person who is mourning for a period of 6 months actually begins to require help at that point in time. And that is what I would call prolonged, mourning.
So we can see that stress has had a lot of impact on society in general. Mm-hmm. What would you say are the negative impact of stress, especially like in the workplace and in schools?
You look at, say, in the workplace, a person who is stressed will definitely have extremely low morale to work, and then they are not productive. And that would happen even to a child in school as well. If a child, say, undergoes through a very difficult situation, say they lose a parent, they come for the parent's funeral, they go back to school, they are still in a position of stress, they may lose morale to study, and their grades may actually drop. Another thing is that they actually have very low motivation. People who have stress, one of the negative impacts is low motivation to do things, and a person who is stressed will definitely have very little motivation to move out and, say, associate with other people and so on and so forth. Another impact of stress would be in the workplace would be, say, something like high absenteeism, and this is particularly noticeable in the work environment where we work. You find employees who have stress tend to be absent all the time and give reasons for and excuses for being absent. So if you find an employee in the workplace being absent all the time, or a child missing school frequently, that's a negative cause of impact of stress. And as a supervisor or as a teacher, then I would actually become concerned and want to be able to find out what is causing all this impact. Another thing would be, impact of stress would be people who are stressed tend to be very poor keepers of time because a lot of their time is spent dealing with the stress. And so you find an employee who comes to work late all the time, or a child who cannot get to school in time, tells you that there is a problem, and that is the impact that stress has to them. In the workplace, sometimes you find employees who keep murmuring and complaining all the time about the system. Oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this and that doesn't work. And employees who do that all the time would give you an idea that this person is actually facing stress from some external environment and is exhibiting the symptoms within the environment. Again, another impact of stress would be that persons who are stressed tend to have extremely poor performance and productivity. They may report to work, and at the end of the day, you find they have done work which would be equivalent to what somebody would be able to do in an hour. They spent a whole 8 hours and they've done only work which would be equivalent to be done by the person with the same qualifications and skills within just an hour. So if you find an employee behaving that way, then they're likely to be having stress, and stress as a negative impact would be able to cause poor productivity. Another impact of stress is that it causes ill health and constant accidents, frequent accidents. You find in the workplace, people, particularly in production environments, a lot of injuries because people are probably not able to, operate machines well, so they cause accidents.
Or they're absent-minded.
Or they're absent-minded, and then they cause an accident. People just become sick all the time. I've seen in my workplace a lot of people with back pain and constant headaches and abdominal blood pressure issues and so on and so forth, all emanating from the negative impact of stress.
Those are quite a number of negative impacts of stress. Is there anything positive about stress?
Oh, yes. After all is said and done, stress has got certain things it does to us that are good. Stress is not always bad. There is good stress as well. And one of the positive things that you get with stress is that if you encounter a stressful situation and you overcome it the first time, and again you get another one and you overcome it a second time, it enhances your confidence and is able to give you confidence to be able to deal with stresses in future. And so stress has that particular positive effect that you'll actually be able to give you confidence in the way that you do your things.
Thanks. I remember when I was learning how to drive, the first time was really scary for me. And I did not imagine that I could actually drive from home to the office on my own. But when I did it the first time, I realized that I have to take the car back in the evening. But because I had made it to work, then I knew I could actually do it in the evening. That did give me some confidence.
Yes. And that's a very good example. Another positive thing that we might be able to get from stress is that it fosters resilience. People who encounter stress are more resilient to future stresses. And so when problems come, they are able to rebuff or rebut the effects of those particular problems, and then they even triumph over those problems. Another positive impact of stress is that it enhances creativity. And a person who has encountered a stressful situation and has been able to deal with it becomes more creative in the way in dealing with stress, and they can even become a role model for others to be able to learn from. So that is a positive impact of stress. Another positive impact of stress would be that it promotes bonding. When you are stressed and people come in and help you and they assist you to be able to deal with the stressful situation, like in the instance when you have lost a relative or a very close friend, and other people come around you and they envelop you and they help you to grieve, it creates bonding, and so therefore that is not to say that stress is always bad. It has that good effect in the workplace. It will actually create teamwork, because when you are stressed and people come around you, your fellow colleagues, you eventually feel that you are part of the team. And in future, if there's a job that comes out or a challenge that comes out in the work environment, you are able to tackle it as a team because you feel you can connect with these people. Yes, and then finally, I think a positive effect of stress is that it promotes personal growth, and you because you have encountered problems and you've been able to solve them, you have encountered stressors and you've been able to overcome them. This promotes positive growth of a person. You are not retarded, in as far as dealing with the problems of life, because everybody faces problems in life. So when you encounter stressful situations, it does generate personal growth. And that, I think, is a good thing.
True.